Welcome. This is a budget workshop of the Waterville City Council.
Say that again. Thanks, Council. I'll wait until Councilwoman McCormick gets
Yes.
settled in.
Got it.
The first budget for tonight is assessing, and that's on page 13 of the budget binder. And as I said at the first meeting, the smaller departments at the, actually urging a request of the Finance Committee, I gave it an option for those department heads whether to attend or not. So you may see some that come, you may see others that don't, just so that you're aware of that. And so the assessing budget shows a roughly $30,000 net increase over the current year. Real basic on this one. As some of you know, I created a deputy assessor position.
You have an extra binder there. I brought the city manager binder out. Is that what that is?
This is mine, but you can
Tom,
you
there's
can use it. No, I can.
an extra one.
We have one right over here, Tom.
That's
You got
Flavia's.
There's an
I
extra
use
one. I think,
Flavia's till she shows up.
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, go on.
Okay. So I created a deputy assessor position recently, which is in your city manager's report for the council meeting tonight. And so this budget reflects the salary increase in the assessor's office for the deputy assessor position. We're not going to replace the administrative assistant. We're simply going to have a deputy assessor position instead. And that's essentially all the change in this budget. Some health insurance increase because of that, and then the salary as well. And of course the benefits that go along with it, FICA and Medicare and the like. And I can certainly talk about why we've created a deputy assessor position if you'd like. So our administrative assistant position became vacant in assessing, and I think very, I don't want to say craftily, but made the city a better place by hiring Allie Brochu, who was the administrative assistant in assessing and then left to become the assessor in Farmington, and now is coming back to join us as the deputy assessor. And that allows us to have some succession planning as well in the assessing department as our assessor gets closer to retiring. So I think it's very valuable, especially during this year as we're doing the revaluation as well. So we'll have expertise in that office assisting our current assessor. We will be when Allie comes on board. Yes, she's due to start April 28th. So end of next week.
Remind me, I'm sorry. When does the next round of property assessment? Oh, when does the next round of property assessment begin?
It's already started.
Yeah, it has, right?
Yeah. So we should have the revaluation done by, hopefully August 1st or middle of August anyway, because we'll have to commit taxes and send out tax bills around the middle to end of August.
Sure.
The date for assessing that, Tom, is April the 1st.
Yeah.
So
okay.
whatever the property's worth, whatever the value is on April 1st is
Gotcha.
when we don't find out what the answer is to all of those questions until they get mailed out in August.
Right.
So on that note, what kind of communication will we be doing with property owners other than sending out a new tax bill?
I'm going to be discussing that once
Okay.
the deputy assessor starts, the end of next
Okay.
week.
Great.
But yeah, there'll be some communications, obviously, that we're going to send out. We just haven't, we wanted to wait until we're fully staffed before we decide what that looks like.
Okay, well, I think this is a brilliant reorganization of the department, and really glad that Allie's coming back to Waterville.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
very.
Absolutely. That is that's fantastic.
It was sad when, yeah.
Yep.
I'm glad that's a win.
Big one.
I think so. I think it's good for the city. It's good for everyone.
Thank you for facilitating that.
Absolutely. Any other questions about the assessing budget at all?
It's about the best juice per squeeze I can imagine for a department.
Okay, so up next is planning, which is on page 34. So this budget has been renamed Planning and Community Development, and shows a net increase of about $59,000. And this is basically one change as well. Down under the labor cost full-time wages, I'm proposing that we add a full-time community development coordinator position to the planning and community development budget. So you see the increase in wages, and you see the increase in health insurance and other benefits that go along with that. You also see under the operating cost some minimal expenses, $1,500 dues and membership and office supplies to purchase a desk for the new employee. You'll also see under total revenue, closer to the top, there's a grant for the community development position of $50,000. And I have that guaranteed for 2 years, so $50,000 for next year and the year after that to help fund that position. So essentially the cost to the city for that position is a little bit around $54,000 total
Nice.
per year for the next 2 years.
Where'd you get that grant?
It's a private donation that I'm not sure if they want me to divulge
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
I can certainly tell you offline,
Sure.
let you know. And I'll say that the vision for this position, and again, it goes back to the council's goal-setting workshop, where housing obviously is a major need in the city. And we've talked about this a little bit in previous council meetings. The first major goal for this position would be to create a housing plan. So to work with all the various community groups, the Land Trust, the Waterville Housing Authority, private developers as well, and create a housing plan for the city. And then really start looking into ways that the city can help create affordable housing, whether that's the city borrowing money, assisting developers, assisting the housing authority, assisting KV Cap, or whomever it may be. That would be the primary goal. At the same time, I also envision this position applying for grants around community development. So, housing obviously is one of those topics, but other types of community development as well, whether it's partnering with another organization if they need assistance to find money for them. And then I'm sure that the position will grow from that.
So is this somebody who might be managing the land bank if we created one of those?
Thank you, Counselor. Yes, it's been a long weekend, and it's on a Monday on a Tuesday. But yes, obviously working with the land bank as well, if the council approves that, once we get that in front of the council, a potential home repair program, revolving loan type fund, all of those types of things would fall under this position. Because all of those types of things need to be done. We know that there's a really severe need for all of that, but there's no staff capacity to do it well. So yes, thank you for reminding me about that.
Well, this sounds like an excellent addition to the staff. Thank you.
Any other questions around planning and community development? Okay. Up next is finance, which is on page 19. She's good. I will say that Finance Director Christina Terrian is back from having to deal with an issue, personal issue. She is watching the meeting tonight, so if we do want her on for anything, we certainly can have her come in. She had asked me tonight, and I said that she should go home and deal what she needs to deal with, and she certainly can listen in, and she and I will talk tomorrow, I'm sure. Sorry, I'm just pulling it up myself. So the finance budget, one of the things that we've done also to reorganize is the customer service manager position. So that position previously was a third budgeted under administration, a third under finance, and a third under the clerk's office. In this budget, we have it split evenly between finance and the clerk's office, and not under administration at all. So there's a little bit of an increase in this budget for that. There's also an increase for wage adjustments, getting up to the 75th percentile. For trying to think how many people are
And
affected by that
finances,
that aren't union. One,
2, 3.
three positions for that. And then under operating costs, really two, I guess I'll call them notable increases. Training and workshops. This is training for 6.5 staff members that are in that department, because there are 2 customer service reps that also fall into this department. So we have a union increase in those wages as well per contract. So we have a roughly $3,000 increase in training and workshops, which really is not that much for 6.5 people. And then directly underneath that is professional services, which is proposed at $15,000. This is a new item, and what this comprised of is contracting with a CPA to essentially help the finance department prepare our financial statements on an annual basis. It's what's been happening in the past, which is pretty much the case in every municipality that doesn't have a CPA on staff, is that when the audit time comes, the auditor will prepare the financial statements. And that really shouldn't be happening that way. We should be able to have a separation of duties. The auditor should come in and review the information that we have and review the financial statements instead of preparing them. So what this is proposing is that we contract with a firm that will provide that service to us and work with the finance department throughout the year to make sure that everything is in order and things are working smoothly. This should also cut down on the cost for the audit, because we won't have the auditor having to do that type of work. I can't tell you how much that's going to be yet. We have the audit RFP that will probably be going out end of this week, beginning of next week, because we are at the end of a contract. And our current auditing company has said that they are no longer going to be doing municipal audits, but that they would be interested in doing this type of service for the community.
What has the cost been in the past?
For the audit,
Yeah,
it's around 36.
whole package, like the preparation
Yeah.
of the financials and everything.
It's around 36,000. So while I don't think that we'll have a reduction of 15,000 in that price, I think it could be half of that.
Yeah.
Especially knowing in advance that there'll be a CPA preparing those financial statements and working with the finance department throughout the year.
So in this proposal, there would be a continuity of expertise on the preparation of the financials.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Where does the audit appear in the budget? Is that in administration?
Yes, I believe it is.
Okay, so,
Yep. Which we'll see later on tonight.
yes.
Yep.
I'm just getting ahead of myself.
Yes. And I haven't changed, just so you know, I haven't reduced that number any, because I don't know what it might be. I'm hoping by the time we take a vote, the council takes a vote on it, that we'll have those numbers in.
So, in terms of your restructuring, is this going to make it easier for us to understand and make financial decisions on a meeting basis instead of having to do everything just in the when we do the budget? In other words, when things come up like buying a police car on the fly, is that going to be more understandable to council?
I would hope so. I mean, I think we'll have more information for both council and the finance committee throughout the year to be able to see the big picture of everything. I mean, obviously, the finance director's done a great job going through all the accounts and putting those together, which, you'll see on an ongoing basis. The finance committee will, as well as the council. But this will, I think, just lead to more continuity and clearer information on a more timely matter, instead of seeing financial statements at the end of the year. We may be able to see them either quarterly, at least semi-annually, which I think would be definitely a good thing. And keeping in mind that the audit, for the previous fiscal year probably isn't going to be done. I mean, it should be done around December of that calendar year. So it's still 6 months later. So if we see financial statements, or at least draft ones, 6 months or 7 months into the fiscal year, you're that much further ahead. Really a year ahead than what you would be if you wait until the audit comes along.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bill, just for my own clarification and education, what is deferred compensation? I'm just looking at that line. It looks like we spend about 13 to 16 grand a year on it, and then what we actually spent dipped, and it looks like we're making up whatever was getting deferred got extra deferred for another year or something.
So the deferred compensation is the city's retirement plan for the employees.
Got you.
So it'll vary based on the employee's selection during that year, and if there's a new employee that comes into that department or moves out, then it will vary based on what we actually would spend. So it all depends on the employee selection.
Got you.
But that's what that is. That's what deferred compensation is. And it's tied
In other
directly.
words, that's the city's contribution to the
Yes.
employment plans. So if the employee decides to have a certain amount of their salary put in, and the city has a formula to a match or to super match.
Correct.
That's,
Yeah, and depending on, obviously it's tied to the salary of those employees. So if their salaries are increasing, then we budget for an increase in the deferred compensation as well, assuming that they're going to be, participating in the retirement, which most do. And if an employee in any given year, say they're contributing 3% and then decide to increase that to 5%, then the city's match goes up as well. So we do budget usually for the max to make sure that we're covered. Otherwise, we're going to be shorting ourselves. And again, keeping in mind anything that's unexpended goes into undesignated fund balance at the end of the year, which then can be used for the following year. But oftentimes you see that line fluctuate with the wages.
Do you, this is possibly a hard question for you to answer since you've been with us only a short time, but do you have any sense of what that looks like year to year? I mean, do we typically have a surplus, or are we sometimes dipping in, sometimes dipping out?
I can't answer that
Yeah,
question. I
okay.
don't know, but I certainly can look at that and provide an answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just asking because, of course, it's a good idea to plan for the maximum that you're going to need. But just curious if that typically, if we're typically seeing a surplus.
Yeah. No, I certainly can look at that. My gut reaction would be that probably there is a surplus at the end of the years, just because of movement of employees. But I don't have any facts that would base that up. I'd have to look at it, or have our HR department look at it.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure that that's really necessary. It seems to me that for the last few years we've had a surplus, so we're designating, we're using some portion of the unassigned fund balance, but then typically we're putting it back.
Putting it back
That's
as
what
well.
I'd be interested to see, say over 5 years or so.
Okay. I'm sure the finance director who's watching is taking notes as well.
Yeah.
Any other questions around finance? Okay. Up next is the city clerk's budget. That's on page 16. So this budget shows approximately a $28,000 increase, all in Patty's wage. No, it's actually, it is all in wages or salaries or benefits. So if you go down into the labor cost, and again, this is the customer service manager position. It was 33%, now it's 50% funded by clerk and the rest in finance. So you see an increase in the full-time salaries and wages line, which is that plus the 75th percentile. More importantly, under part-time and temporary wages, you see a big increase of 27,000. And that is essentially for election workers. So what we've done in this year's budget is that we have 3 elections that will be falling in the next fiscal year. So that's one more than usual. We have increased wages for the election workers as well to get them up above minimum wage and to pay the wardens a little bit more for their efforts. They're certainly not getting rich by any stretch of the imagination, and the work that they do is fantastic for the city. And we certainly couldn't run without their help and their assistance. But the biggest difference there is because there's 3 elections.
Are there state or federal programs that can help subsidize that kind of a thing?
Nope, none that I'm aware
No.
of.
There should be.
The state can barely fund the State Elections Bureau. They're understaffed and,
Yeah.
yeah. There could be some federal grants, I suppose, but they're difficult to find and fight for
Sure.
at a local level especially. I mean, it would be something at a state level perhaps.
It's one of those things, Tom, that if you're doing a really good job at the local level, like we are here in Waterville, why the feds and the state say, oh, well, you don't need any help.
Yeah, right.
Well,
The increases are fortunately offset by health insurance choices. So we do see a reduction in the health insurance line, by pretty significant, of $18,000. So, and again, that's one of those lines that every year will fluctuate based on the employee choices for health insurance. But yeah, it would be great, Tom, if we could have some assistance paying for elections that, I mean, most of the time we don't have any items or very, very few. I mean, we have one election generally a year that's city-based, and the other 2 in this case
that's right.
aren't. But if you think about it in another way, if we decide that we want to have an election on something, whatever it might be, a referendum question or whatnot, then you're piggybacking. You're just paying for ballots, really, and you're not,
Right.
On line 32 and 33, because I'm curious, what's miscellaneous revenue?
Sure. This is, yeah. So these lines, if you look from line 27 down through to 33, where this is again where we're breaking out lines. So we had the last line that says miscellaneous revenue previously was budgeted at 7,000, and we've broken that out into the categories up above that to try to better track that, both in the clerk's office and in the finance office, because it does include many different things, as you can see: notaries, photocopies, licenses, pawnbrokers, innkeepers, that type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the numbers are of a scale that I would never even really look at them, but like what is that even?
Yeah,
Yeah.
very small.
Well, but like innkeeper, what pawn? Like it's I don't even know what that means.
Those are the licenses the business licenses that we administer.
Got you.
Yeah.
I see. That makes sense.
Secondhand pawn dealers,
I got you.
innkeeper licenses, yeah.
Yeah. Right.
And that's always the question that comes up when we're department heads are reviewing their budgets with the finance director and myself. We'd say, well, what's in most miscellaneous revenue? And so
Yeah.
we said, well, you know what, let's break it out.
Yeah.
Let's see it so that we can understand that, so that when we don't have to ask that question every time.
Yeah.
So I have a question about just informational on 41, the part-time and temporary wages. What's the what was the difference between the department request and the proposed? Is that increase in wages or?
It was late information coming in.
Oh, okay.
When we
Oh, all
reviewed,
right.
yep, when we reviewed the city clerk's budget, we were thinking about the number of elections,
Okay.
and we looked at it, and Patty went, "Uh-oh, I
Wait
think
a
we have
minute.
3."
We have 2
Okay.
primaries as well, so
Okay.
yeah.
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 So that's all that difference is.
All
Yeah.
right. We're not. Yeah. We're
It's
not
good to ask that question, though.
more than doubling wages.
Right.
Although it's good. It's good to be paying them a decent
Yeah, they work
wage.
for their
It's
money, for
hard.
sure.
Okay, thank you.
Last year, we just had one election, right?
I try to put them out of my mind. I think it was just one.
Just the one in the fall election last year. We didn't have a primary.
Yeah, didn't we have a June primary last year?
I don't think.
An even numbered year? We did.
Oh,
We had
June
and
would
then
have been in
November.
last year's.
Yeah, but that was a different fiscal year.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So there'll be a November, and then a March.
A March presidential primary and then a June primary.
Yep. Other questions around the city clerk's budget? Okay. Administration is on page 8. So there are several changes in this budget. You notice at the top, the net increase is 160,000. Again, several changes here. So under administration labor cost, line 26, full-time salaries and wages. So this covers 3 full-time exempt employees, city manager, assistant city manager, and the executive assistant. I've budgeted for the top salary for the city manager's position because I don't know what it's going to be. I'm hoping that we'll know and we'll have a contract in place so then I can actually apply what the actual salary is. That also follows under the other benefits that are down there too, especially group health insurance. You see a large increase there. I would expect that number to decrease as well once we know what the benefit selections are from the new city manager. And again, we should have that information before you take your first vote on the budget. So this is a high number. I expect it will be able to come down some, hopefully, as long as the council does a good job negotiating. And it does also include the 75th percentile wages for the assistant city manager's position and the executive assistant position, as was discussed with all the other departments. Under economic development costs, which starts around on page 51, we have KV cog dues going up about $5,000, $5,100. The reason for that is that if you remember when the city rejoined the organization, there was a discount given for the dues. And now this will be paying the full dues for that for the year. And there was a slight increase in their dues as well. But it is nice to see the KV cog is fully staffed for the first time in quite a while. And they're actually adding employees above what their fully staffed capacity was because of the work that they're obtaining on a contract basis. So I think that's definitely a plus for us.
Remind me how they set those dues. Is that based on our valuation as a town, or
It's
how?
based on per capita,
I got you.
so based on population.
Got you.
Yep. And we're obviously one of the largest populations in their
Yeah.
service district, other than Augusta, and Augusta does not participate with KV cog.
Yeah.
And it does, I won't want to say buy, but we have 2 seats on the General Assembly and we have one seat on the board of directors, which I'm currently serving on their board of directors.
How large is that body?
The board is maybe 13. It's not large.
And they meet every other month or monthly? What is it?
Generally monthly. There's some months that you don't have to because there's not much going on. But
Yeah.
if there's a holiday month like December, they don't meet. But generally they meet monthly. There was a meeting earlier today. Line 54, festivals, events, and marketing. So if you recall from last year, you see a $25,000 increase here, and basically that's for marketing, rebranding, that type of thing that the council again spoke about during your council workshop, and it was in the budget for last year, but was one of those cuts that happened towards the end of the budget process. So I've put that $25,000 back in the budget. I think it's important. I think it's needed.
So it says festivals. Is this does that include support for Waterville Rocks?
This Waterville Rocks is in a different budget. It's in non-operating costs.
But under admin here?
Nope,
Okay.
it's in a different department completely.
Gotcha.
So this covers a contribution for Kringleville,
Got you.
as well as the Cena Night Out event. There's some small funding there. The majority of it is the $25,000 for marketing, however.
And who's going to be administering the marketing?
It's a good question. I think that'll fall under the assistant managers, hopefully with some help from the community development director or community development coordinator, as well as hopefully partnering with some organizations such as the Chamber and Waterville Creates. That would be the goal, to try to have a cohesive rebranding and marketing, if you will. That's the thought at this point.
So what kind of advertising are we talking about?
I think it goes above and beyond the advertising, but trying to be thoughtful about providing information to the public that comes to the city about where businesses are located, with certain maps that might be able to be available for visitors, but also providing information about the city and what it can offer on our website, to have a full effort together with our new website, to also provide information at the different information booths that are down further in southern Maine, along the highway, on the turnpike. We don't have materials down there. I mean, I know that the Chamber probably has some materials down there, but it would help if the city had some as well. Different types of support in that marketing for potentially out-of-the-box thinking events that we might be able to do, with businesses, partnering with them. One of the thoughts that another business owner had today was, providing like a bingo card type thing where you visit so many businesses in the city and you get your card stamped and you get a small gift card or something like that to another business. Out-of-the-box type thinking like that to try to spur people to visit different businesses. Whether it's on North Main Street or the South End or Main Street or wherever it is. So that's just some of the thoughts that I've had when we're thinking about this. But really, I haven't had the time to really sit down and think completely about what we need to do. But with the Chamber's help and with Waterville Creates, I think we can probably come up with a well-devised strategy. I'm certainly not going to be sitting there doing it myself.
So will some of the cost be hiring a consultant, do you think?
It could be. I'd like to think that we can use the money better than hiring a consultant, but it all depends on what that looks like.
Well, when you say rebranding, I mean, presumably that would involve,
Yes.
are we,
And again, I throw it out there as
Yeah,
it's a
okay.
discussion. It's one of those things where I think we need to put a working group together with different, the Chamber, Waterville Creates, administration, maybe a counselor or two, some business owners,
Okay.
and try to figure out what do we want to do, what's needed.
So for instance, if we do start to take actions on the revisioning would be nice for the local folks to know that we're doing things, but there might be some things that we'll do that would make us attractive to people
Exactly.
who are not in Waterville.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's part of the conversation that he's talking about is like any kind of marketing strategy. The first thing you ask is who do we want to talk to?
Right.
And then what do we want to tell them? And then it's like, then how do you reach that? And that's how you get there. But first it's really thinking about who needs to be messaged to.
Yeah. Who's the target audience?
It would be great to get some more dynamic banners on Main Street too.
Yes, it would. And that's part of it too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it may be doing some seasonal type banners or, you know, something to go along with that as well.
Yeah. I mean, 25K will go quick.
It does.
Yeah, right.
Yep. But, you know, I look at it as a start.
Yeah.
Further down under the maintenance, so obviously the City Hall maintenance is also included in this budget overall. There's a $9,000 decrease in group health insurance, again, based on selections of employees. Under City Hall maintenance operating costs, you'll notice on line 80, which is facility maintenance and upgrades. There's a $7,000 increase there, and that's basically to do some renovation work in City Hall to move some employees back in to City Hall that are outside the city, such as the HR director would be moving in. Also, some money in order to accommodate that, we have to shift a lot of things around. So there's some funding in there for that activity. Under general operating costs, dues memberships, that covers the Maine Municipal Association membership, which went up, I think it was roughly 5%. Also includes the Maine Service Center Coalition, which Waterville is a part of as well. And obviously our membership with MMA allows us to participate in their property and casualty risk pool and the Maine Municipal Employees Health Trust, which gives us better rates on insurance, both health insurance and liability and property insurance. Professional services general, you see a $10,000 increase. That's line
90?
Yes, sorry. My spreadsheet just went crazy. That's line 90. And so what is included in this line is a website revised website, completely revamped, and also a notification system for residents of the city that would be by subscription. So we would offer a menu of topics that residents could choose that they wanted to be notified about, whether it's a council meeting, whether it's an office closure, a weather closure, whether it's a special event that's going on, like a downtown visioning type workshop, that type of thing. My thought around this product also is that we would be able to create a new parking ban system. Instead of having a citywide parking ban system, we'd be able to have zones
Oh, that's a good idea.
and allow notifications on which zone might be a parking ban for that night, where the public works crew would be working,
Yeah, I like that.
to remove snow. I mean, obviously we'd still have parking bans when it's snowing because that's the time when we have to clear the streets. But then when we're removing snow later on, we don't have to have a parking ban in the entire city if we're working on zone A or zone B or zone C.
This is what I had hoped for when we first put that ban in place a few years ago.
Yeah, so I think,
Something that we-
but we need to have a good method of getting that information out to the public as well.
And so this is an email subscription or text or
It would-
whichever you
I
designate?
think it would be email or text from the ones that we've been looking at. So we've looked at several, IT and the executive assistant in the manager's office
Yeah.
have been looking at these.
And the subscription is free voluntary.
Yes, for residents, correct. Yep. Yep. And again, they get to choose. And then if they get tired of seeing council meetings, that are being popped up on there, they can just unsubscribe from that one. And they can subscribe to a different one.
So different tight categories of events have separate subscriptions.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep. So we're working on that, but we need to budget for it, obviously, in order
Yeah.
for us to purchase that.
The 10K for the website, are we doing that in-house or are we contracting that? How's that going to go?
We would be contracting that. There are a lot of canned products that do municipal websites, and so we don't need to reinvent the wheel. But we obviously would have to buy that product in order for us to update what we have for information. It will be a lengthy process. I expect that I'll have the RFP out, I'm hoping next week. Again, I've had IT and the executive assistant in the manager's office.
Does it need an RFP? It's 10K, right?
I've got to look at the prices. They've got some prices from vendors that they've been looking at. So
I see.
it may not need an RFP.
Yeah.
It all depends on what the prices are. I've got to look at it.
Yeah.
I've got to look at it. But that's essentially the increases in that line is for the website, because there's some money built into there for the website already.
Yeah.
That I had put in for this year, and we just haven't had a chance to get to it. So that's why the increase is 10,000. The next line down is property and general liability insurance. So this line is increasing approximately 21,000. The finance director has been doing an excellent job in our fixed assets, documenting what we have actually for fixed assets and what we don't have any longer. And so in doing that, we found some things that weren't listed on our insurance that should have been, and things that were listed that shouldn't have been. So we're anticipating that there'll be an increase there based on the value of those items that are now going to are listed on the insurance versus the ones that are coming
vehicular
out.
stuff or
Vehicles, a lot of vehicles, equipment, that type of thing.
yeah,
Yes. Yep.
like the stuff out at Quarry Road. I know you guys get
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of that wasn't listed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. So we're listing that now. Under the miscellaneous line, under general operating cost, this is basically the catch-all for everything else. You can also think of it as contingency. Whatever comes up during the year that we don't anticipate spending on would fall in this line. It shows a $15,000 increase. This is one of the lines that last year was cut. It was reduced from the 25 to the 10. So I'm adding it back in at the full level that has been budgeted historically. You never know what that line's going to look like from one year to the next. If you look back historically, it's been 16 and then 15. We budgeted at 10. You never know.
Yeah.
Down under the mayor and city council operating costs, this is an area where we've separated lines out again to try to better track these. Previously, I'm going to go to the last line, which is miscellaneous expense. Again, contingency, I think of it as. A lot of different things were budgeted or paid from this line previously, including the rent for this space was funded out of there. Now it has its own line. The council chamber facility rental is a separate line now, which is 109. I think it's better to track it that way. The professional services and training and conference line, that basically is for the council retreat and the goal setting workshop. That was funded previously under the miscellaneous expense as well. So now you see the breakout of those. You see an increase there because last year that line was completely eliminated or not funded, even though we have expenses that would need to come out of that line. So, but I've broken them out so that you can see what really falls into that category.
What is the future of our usage of this facility? Do you have any sense there?
Let's have a conversation after the meeting. So we have been looking at different spaces. The small group of counselors and staff that have been charged with looking at different council chambers and finding a permanent home, if you will. So I want to talk with those of you that have not been involved around that and just give you an update on that. But I anticipate that they will have an executive session at your next council meeting.
Yeah.
to have a good discussion around that. Other questions or comments around the administration budget?
I just wanted to let those councilors who are not on the finance committee know about our discussion about professional development and training. It's one of the things we identified in our council workshop that we wanted to support, and so there is some funding in, I think, a number of departments, which is new, right?
Yeah,
And-
yeah. If you look at the training lines or
Yeah.
the workshop lines, there is funding that you'll see an increase in those lines for professional development for staff. Absolutely. Pretty much every department, I think we've added money or increased it that was already there. But yes, absolutely.
And just to be clear, I see that as a good thing. I think it's really important to invest in our staff and make sure they have the training they need.
It's received as such by the staff too. I imagine
They appreciate going to trainings. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Other questions around the administration budget?
Oh, I have one other. The growth council is coming in at less this year.
That's the actual cost.
Okay,
So it was
Got it.
budgeted as an estimate
Yeah.
before, and that's
Okay.
the actual cost.
great. Okay.
Yep, that's why it shows a slight decrease. Okay,
was that is that the last department?
that's the last department for tonight.
What do you know?
Great timing.
Smooth sailing.
Very nice.
Smooth sailing.
The agenda does indicate that we can start the regular meeting immediately following the budget workshop.
Oh.
I'd like to request that we take 5 minutes and start
Second.
just before.
Okay.
for our meeting. Oh, but we're missing Counselor McCormick.
Yeah, we don't have quorum here.
Okay. Good evening. This is a
I'm signed into one of these things.
Late-
Sorry.
This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Waterville City Council. There are agendas available in the file pockets near the entrance or online on the City of Waterville website. All items appearing on the consent agenda are voted on in one motion and vote. Generally, these items are routine in nature and do not require discussion. All items listed under unfinished business or new business are voted on separately. First, councilors will be given an opportunity for questions or comments. Once all councilors have had an opportunity to speak, citizens will be given an opportunity for comments or questions. Citizens must speak at the podium and identify themselves. Each citizen will be allowed one opportunity to speak and will be limited to 3 minutes. And I am going to observe this guideline that hasn't always been observed, just out of respect for everyone that's here, and we do have a long agenda. Finally, the councilors will be given another opportunity to speak or comment. Citizens who would like to speak on a topic that does not appear on tonight's agenda will have an opportunity to do so under the public comments section of the agenda. And we will now disclose conflicts of interest, if there are any. Does anyone have a conflict of interest? Nope. All right. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance then.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next we'll go to City Manager report, please.
So as usual, I will just highlight a few things from the written report that was included in the material that was posted online and was given to the City Council. First off, the City Hall closing. Again, as a reminder, this Thursday and Friday, the offices of the clerk and the tax collector will be closed to the public as we do our software upgrade, which is exciting, even though it doesn't sound very much like it is. Those types of transactions that generally are done there, vehicle registrations, tax payments, that sort of thing, can be done online. If it's a new vehicle registration, it can be done on Thursday at the Town of Winslow Town Office. They're helping us on that day. They're closed on Fridays, so they can't do it on Fridays. Number 4 on my report was about the composting program. So I'm simply going to read this so that it's here. As you probably know, Garbage to Garden discontinued their service to Waterville on March 31st. The Public Works Department has been in contact with an alternate food waste group from Rockland called Scrap Dogs Community Compost. Scrap Dogs offers curbside pickup as well as community drop-off. In an effort to promote the program and answer questions from the public, they are hosting a Get to Know Scrap Dogs workshop at the Waterville Junior High School on Tuesday, April 25th from 6 to 8 p.m. in the cafeteria. So I would encourage everyone that's interested in composting or the like to attend that so that we can get as much information and participation from that program.
As far as I understand about Scrap Dogs program, the first month is actually, I believe they're advertising the first month is free. So if you sign up for the first month of weekly curbside delivery is free. It is a little bit costlier than the last program, but that's the reason we lost the last program, because they didn't have their pricing dialed in correctly. But
Yep.
so hopefully this will be more sustainable.
Hopefully, and there is more information obviously that will come out, and certainly at that workshop as well. And once we have the full information, we'll have announcements on our website, of course, and links and information and all of that type of thing, which would be one of those great things to have in our future notification system, right? The Central Western Maine Workforce Development Board. So I've been in contact with their executive director. They actually offer a couple of programs that the city can participate in for employees for positions that we find hard to fill, but these would also be dedicated to those that may struggle to find employment or training to get to the proper employment. So one of these types of programs that they offer is an apprenticeship program where they'll pay 50% of the wage for a certain period of time for certain employees that can get on-the-job training with the city. So I've met with the executive director. We're very excited about that. We're setting up a meeting with HR as well, and I would anticipate that we'll be joining forces with them so that we can fill some of the positions that are difficult to fill, but more importantly, provide some work opportunities, whether it's for younger adults or young or teenagers with, say, Parks and Rec or something along those lines. But I'll say that one of the positions that we're really looking at is our mechanic positions. This is something that we have a hard time filling. And this is perfect for an apprenticeship, we think, where we can have somebody doing on-the-job training, while earning money, and then if there's a good fit and they do well, leading to a full-time position with the city. So we will be launching that later on. I'll provide more details as we work through that process. And the last thing I wanted to mention too, through my report, is the personnel changes with the deputy assessor position. So again, the council knows this from your budget workshop, but we've decided not to fill the administrative assistant position in the assessing department after a vacancy was created there. And instead, I've created a deputy assessor position and filled that with the former administrative assistant in assessing, who had left us to go to Farmington to be the assessor. She's coming back to the city, Allie Brochu. We're very excited to have her back. She'll be starting the end of April. So very excited to have her back. That's the highlights from my report.
Great, thank you. And just a reminder that you can read the full report. It's included in the agenda packet online if you're listening in from home or if you haven't read it yet.
Bill, please extend our welcome to Allie from the council explicitly, how happy we are that she is back with the city.
I will definitely do that.
Yeah, it's great news. Any council committee reports? Okay. Moving on to councilor comments. Councilor Frankie.
For the last couple of weeks, the Waterville Land Trust has been putting together a gazebo that will stand in the little park down on Water Street. It was a kit that was donated, and all of the labor that's gone into it has been volunteer labor. It should be a nice addition to the little park down there on Water Street, and I want to thank the folks in the Land Trust for the hard work that they put in on this project.
Great. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
I just wanted to remind people that any property owners who have brown-tailed moth on their property on a tree or shrub that the brown-tailed moths will be emerging from their nests in the next 2 or 3 weeks. You know, they're going to start coming out, and we're going to be getting into the peak hare season. So this is the last chance you'll have to do any kind of manual removal of those nests. And so the public service announcement I'm giving you is that to remind you about the pole pruner lending program that we have at the public library. If you don't have the correct tools to deal with the problem on your property, that you can go to the public library and just use your public library card and check out. I think we have 2 12-foot and 2 14-foot pole pruners that can be checked out year-round. You can use them at any point for anything, really, but they're meant for taking brown-tail moth out of the trees. Always, if you're doing that, making sure to use the correct personal protective equipment, meaning if you're going to be handling anything, handling them using gloves, ideally disposable gloves like rubber gloves or something. And a face mask doesn't hurt. Eye protection doesn't hurt. Making sure to always wash your clothes afterwards, or wear something over, so that it doesn't get into your clothing. And then what's the last point? Oh, once you get it off the tree, do not burn it. Do not burn the nests. That can be dangerous if you inhale the smoke from them. There was an example of someone who died in 1914 from doing that. So don't burn the nests. You just simply take them and stick them in a large bucket of soapy water and let them sit there for 5 minutes. Then you can put them in the regular garbage. Just put them in a plastic bag in the garbage. Don't put them in the green recycling or anything like that. But just want people to know the resources that are available to them.
Thank you. Do we anticipate a lighter season this year?
Yeah, I'm hoping. I think so.
Mm-hmm.
We did an extremely comprehensive treatment last year, and we're doing across both public and private property. And then this year we didn't have the same resources that we had that initial year, but it didn't seem like it warranted it this year. But we're doing a comprehensive treatment across all public spaces. So all the
Great.
parks and schools and in front of City Hall, everywhere that are public spaces are being correctly addressed this year. Hopefully what we're hoping for is actually a cold, wet May. If May is cold and wet, we had a kind of a cold, wet May last year. If we can get 2 or 3 years of that in a row, it may actually just push it out of central Maine altogether, which would be amazing, but I despair that that'll actually be possible. Anyways.
Okay, thank you. Any other counselor comments? All right, any public comments?
Good evening. My name is Anna Holdener. I am with the South End Neighborhood Association, and we are getting started on some of our spring events that we're always looking for some volunteers for. The first is this Saturday. We have our spring version of the semi-annual cleanup down in the South End, where folks will be coming together, picking up trash in the public areas. We are going to be tackling what's left of the homeless encampments down by the Hathaway. I know Public Works was out there today and did a good job of getting the bulk of it, but there is still some stuff in the woods. So if anyone is looking for an excuse to get outside on Saturday, we provide gloves and trash bags and great company. We will be meeting down at the boat landing parking lot down at the end of Water Street. There'll be a dumpster. We're meeting there, getting started at 8:30. We do have kids from Colby coming down for their Colby Civic Engagement, or their Colby Cares Day, I think it is. And we'll be going until noon. And then the following weekends we're jumping into bike repairs to try to get things ready to hand out bikes to kids. So hopefully, if anyone knows how to fix up a bike, because I sure don't, we could always use your help. So yeah, if you have any questions, you can reach me. My email is sena04901@gmail.com. That comes directly to me, so I will be happy to field any questions or even comments or suggestions. So yep, that's it. Thanks.
I have
Thank you.
a person online has their hand raised.
Oh, okay. Sure. Let's bring them in.
Hi, Nancy. Can you hear us okay?
I can, thank you. Yeah. And Nancy Sanford from Ward 1. And I was listening to the budget workshop before and just wanted to say publicly how much I appreciate Bill Post and his forward thinkingness, and particularly in regards to the community development coordinator. And I think that Waterville's very lucky to have Bill. So thank you.
We agree.
We definitely
Thank
agree.
you, Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy. I appreciate that.
Okay. Any other public comments? Yes.
Hi, Jamie Pelkey, Ward 7, the Waterville Association, Tennis Association is going to meet first in person on April 29th at 11 to 2. It will be at the Adult Educare Center, which is behind the high school at 1 Brooklyn Avenue here in Waterville.
Great. Thank you. All right. Any other public comments? Okay. And no one online?
No.
We will move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt?
Second.
And do we need to do a roll call?
I don't think we
don't have
do.
anyone online?
Mike is not online.
No, so we can just raise our
So-
hands.
Oh, Mike
I'm here.
is
Oh, you are?
online.
Oh, okay.
I'm under Patty,
Okay.
under the
All
name
right.
Patty. I feel so empowered, like I just, you know,
I'm going to rename you right
All
now,
right.
mister.
Well, I
I
spoke
feel
too
more
soon.
important than this, with this name.
Okay. So roll call it is then.
Okay. Counselor Gilly.
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito is absent. Counselor Klepak.
Yes.
Counselor Green.
Yes,
Counselor Morris.
Hey, Mike.
you're muted.
Yes, yes,
Counselor
yes,
Frankie.
yes, yes.
Yes,
Is it?
yes,
And Counselor McCormick.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed. And is there a motion to read by a title only?
So moved.
Can I make a motion to read by title only?
Thank you.
Okay, got it
Thank
covered.
you. Counselor Gilly.
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito is absent. Counselor Klepak.
Yes.
Counselor Green.
Yes,
Counselor Morris.
Yes,
Counselor Frankie.
yes,
Counselor McCormick.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed. All set?
yes.
Moving on.
So
I'm
on
moving
to old business.
Ordinance 47-2023, amend the zoning ordinance 74 Pleasant Street. I need a motion.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Thank you.
All right. Any? Oh,
Sure that you all recall that this is the rezoning of the church rectory on Pleasant Street. This is the second reading of this ordinance.
Yeah. Do we have any counselors who'd like to speak on this? Counselor Frankie.
I expressed my objections at the last meeting. I just want to reiterate that for the protection of the continuity of the neighborhood, I am opposed to this motion. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone online?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I think we can move to a vote then.
Okay. Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito is absent. Counselor Klepak?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Frankie?
No.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
The vote is 5 in favor and 1 opposed.
All right. Moving on to new business.
Resolution 74-2023 authorized the renewal of a special amusement license to Charles Jiggier doing business as Silver Street Tavern.
Move
Move to
to
adopt.
Second.
Okay, and this is pretty standard. We're looking at it because it's required to consider in the under new business. But any comments, questions? Nope. Anyone online?
Nope.
All right. Let's move to a vote.
Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Frankie?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed. Ordinance 75-2023, amend Chapter 180 Marijuana Facilities Ordinance to add extraction facilities.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Can you?
So, yeah, Bill, can you give
Yes.
us a little background on this?
Yes, so the original discussion around this was to potentially change a zoning to allow extraction to occur in a former retail location, which actually you discussed last meeting. The owners are here. Once we thought about it and looked at the ordinance a little bit more, Dan Bradstreet, the code enforcement director, and Patty and I felt it made more sense to make a change in the marijuana ordinance itself that would allow for generally safe levels of extraction in the same areas that marijuana retail stores are allowed. You do have additional information in your materials from the code officer as well, but that's generally what it is. From my understanding, there are 3 different types of extraction activities. The generally safe description is from the state statute, as are the other 2. This would not allow the other 2, which are more hazardous and have hazardous materials, basically. So, Patty, I don't know if you want to add anything to that or not.
I do not.
Okay. I'm wondering if you folks would like to talk about this a little bit, just so that we understand a little bit more about safe extraction. Generally safe extraction.
Hello, my name is Jesse. I'm one of the owners of Wildfire. You met us last time at the last meeting.
My name is Tony Green. I'm also an owner of Wildfire. I was also here. And I think we have another owner online on Zoom. His name is Josh. Okay. Thank you for taking the time today to talk about the change of the marijuana ordinance. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. So the change that's proposed would allow non-hazardous manufacturing in the CC zones. As Bill said, this change would be in line with OCP's regulations, and it will really just help the cannabis businesses in Waterville operate more efficiently. I think it was already said, our location that's planned for this is 4 Sanger Ave in a newly renovated unit next to the Are You Ready to Party store. I know we can't really have visitors at manufacturing, but I would invite everyone to come out to the new store to see how much the building has changed. I think you'd all be kind of happy to see this piece of history preserved for the future, hopefully anyways. So this amendment is based off of OCP's classification of extraction methods: non-hazardous, potentially hazardous, and inherently hazardous. Wildfire would exclusively conduct non-hazardous extractions using water and ice instead of solvents like butane or alcohol. This approach poses no risk to the public, employees, or neighboring establishments. The difference really is that hazardous extractions require extensive documentation during the licensing phase with OCP due to their complexity and risks. In contrast, the non-hazardous extraction is very different because we focus solely on the non-hazardous extractions using plant material, water, and ice. And those are classified separately and generally allowed for like co-location because of their minimal risks and simplicity.
Just to add to that, the main difference is that to conduct hazardous manufacturing, the licensee must have their space inspected and certified by an industrial hygienist or a professional engineer licensed in Maine. This is often referred to as a C1D1 explosion-proof certification. This is not needed when using ice and water for extractions, as there is no inherent risk involved. This key difference in safety is the reason that OCP classifies as extraction types and the reason we are requesting the ordinance change. Manufacturing licenses are not only used for the manufacturing of cannabis products, we will also be using the space for product storage and packaging products. There is no distribution license in Maine for adult use. So in addition to packaging just standard products that you know off the top of your head, we need the manufacturing license to receive finished products from other extraction labs to package it ourselves and move it to the retail market. Really, this would allow us to have more space for our employees to work and open up more options for wildfire as a whole. And this will help us create a home base of operations for all of our products, and our sales team bring in more jobs and create long-term careers for our employees. The need for vertical integration in the cannabis industry is pretty unique, and the rules and regulations for the adult use market are still new to everyone. If you have any questions on our manufacturing processes, questions about wildfire or the industry in general, feel free to ask. We also have our compliance lawyer on Zoom if you have any questions for her. Her name's Jill.
Thank you. That was a very detailed and helpful explanation, and I do appreciate that, because I think, you know, obviously with a change like that, we want to know.
Right. It was a little
Exactly.
rehearsed, but we're not public
Yeah.
speakers, so I apologize.
You guys
It's a
did,
very
It's great.
niche industry, so we want to make sure everyone knows what's going on.
you guys did
Right.
great.
Thank you.
Any questions from counselors? Counselor Frankie.
What does your product look like after you've manufactured it?
So it's the product that we'll be creating is called live rosin or cured rosin. So it's
Similar
not
to-
quite a liquid. It's like a
Kind of like taffy.
like a taffy or like a paste almost.
It's not candy. It's not taffy. It
No.
just has the consistency of taffy.
It'll like range in blonde to like a sandy color really. It's just your regular product and then your water, and we use cold water so it freezes the trichomes on the product, and then you filter it with bags, different size micron bags, and then you dry the product and it leaves this like sandy texture behind, almost like moon sand is my best description of it. And then it goes into a press, which is just a heated press, which is very low temperature. It's about 180 degrees, less than like half of your hair straightener. And that's it. And you have the finished product and you cure it like in a freezer or in like a very low temperature oven, and you're done.
Also, sorry, if any of you have seen like old school hash, that's essentially what we would make first using ice water, and then you sort of apply some heat and some pressure and turn that into rosin.
Yes.
And that the heating is what achieves decarboxylation or something like that? Yeah, gotcha.
And
Got
it
it.
also, like with the, it kind of like melts it a little bit.
Yeah,
So
right.
it allows it to like separate from the leftover stuff.
And how is that product consumed?
It's inhalable.
Yeah, lots of different ways. Inhalable, you can use it to make edibles.
There'll be no edibles in this facility though.
No. But yeah, generally inhaled.
And will you be selling wholesale or just using what you make?
All wholesale.
A little bit of both, actually.
We'll be moving it. We'll be selling it wholesale to our own store. So technically a little bit of retail, but it's through a different LLC.
It'll be both.
Yeah, and obviously, you are the first to have this to benefit from this change, but this is not just for
Right.
your facility, but it would be a change in the marijuana ordinance generally, so.
Exactly, yeah,
yeah.
and it's sort of from OCP, right? Like
Right.
they recognize the different types of extraction, and we really just don't have a ton of interest in the other ones. So.
Yeah. Do you have a sense of how many communities in the state of Maine have a similar manufacturing ordinance?
That is a good question.
I'm
That
not
Does
might be a
Portland,
question
for example?
Jill.
Yeah, that would be a question for Jill.
Yeah.
Is this a new regulation from
No.
OCP? No?
No.
Okay. But presumably related to the growth of the industry or the diversification?
Hey,
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
the diversification for sure.
Okay.
There's a lot of companies who are, like I said, we're just not really interested in the hazardous extractions. So,
Yeah.
we're not the only ones. We might be the only ones in Waterville and adult use right now, but we're
Right.
certainly not the only ones.
In the medical field, this is a very popular form of
Right.
extraction as well, and some places only do ice water extractions. And it is the oldest form as well. It's thousands of years old.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from counselors? And then we'll-
Does their lawyer have their hand up or something?
Is it Jill Cohen?
It is.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
I'll bring Jill in.
Okay.
She's got to earn her money a little bit.
Hi, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Good
Yes.
evening.
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I'm working on the technology. Good evening. My name's Jill Cohen. I've been working with Wildfire for several years now as they've scaled up their adult use cultivation and retail business in Waterville. The question that was asked by the council was if other towns also have similar ordinances for manufacturing. And, with Maine having 400 towns, everybody's doing this a little bit differently. Portland, South Portland, Auburn, Lewiston, Scarborough, many of the cities do allow for extraction at all levels, including the inherently hazardous substance extraction. And they just zone it to their industrial areas. You would not see any extraction using hazardous substances located next to a retail store. So the key here with your ordinance is that you are allowing this low hazard level or really no hazard level of extraction because it does not pose a public safety threat. And the other thing that I think will benefit other licensees in Waterville that Jesse and Tony touched on was the fact that Maine doesn't have a distribution license category. So not only will Wildfire be using their manufacturing license to do solventless ice water extraction, this license allows them and other licensees in Waterville to receive their product back from those labs that are engaging in inherently hazardous substance extraction so that Wildfire can package it themselves and then wholesale it themselves. Without a manufacturing license option, they would have to have that product moved out to the market by the extraction lab. The key to, I think many people would say the key to a successful business in the cannabis industry is vertical integration. And for Wildfire and other Waterville licensees to have this option to control the flow of their product back out to the market and also to engage in non-hazardous extraction is really crucial that they be allowed to be a vertically integrated business. So I hope this answers your question about how many towns are allowing it. Many towns are, particularly on the solventless side. And as Tony and Jesse said, the solventless extraction is very popular in the medical program and has been carried on without incident for decades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just asking actually more. What was behind my question was an interest in which, specifically of the neighboring communities. So like what, you know what I'm saying? What role is this playing in regionally here?
I cannot speak to the specific neighboring communities. That's something I would have to research to see how many of your neighboring towns have allowed manufacturing licenses. And usually in most of the towns where I operate, manufacturing is an allowed license category. And it's just dealt with through zoning as far as what types of manufacturing are allowed where.
Thank you.
I'd like to add to that also. In our current ordinance, all three manufacturing extraction activities are currently allowed, but only in the general industrial and airport industrial zones.
Right.
So this is just allowing it in the commercial B, commercial C, commercial D, general industrial and airport industrial zones. Yep. So, but the other two categories are still in the industrial zones.
Sure, I see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is a separate license, is it?
Yes.
Yes,
from
it is.
Retail and from cultivation.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay.
Thank you,
Okay.
Jill.
Oh, yes, Councilor Frankie.
I have a question for the clerk. If we amend the ordinance this way, will requests for these kinds of operations still come before council in terms of licensing, or is that something that the clerk will do?
For the initial license, it would come before the council, but renewals will be done automatically.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there anyone online who wants to speak,
No,
or anyone from the public?
no.
Okay. Then I think we can move to a vote.
Counselor Gilly,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor McCormick.
No.
The vote is 5 in favor and 1 opposed. Let's see. Resolution 76-2023, refer to the planning board, zoning amendment, parking stall length and setback.
So, go ahead, sorry.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Thank you.
This would obviously refer this to the planning board for consideration, but essentially this is from the developer of the Head of Falls Village project. He's requesting some revisions to the zoning ordinance concerning the length of parking stalls from 18.5 feet to 18 feet and the setback from commercial properties for parking. I think that was from 5 feet to 2 or 3 feet. 2 feet.
Yes, his name is
Todd Alexander.
Todd Alexander. He is online. Should I promote him?
Yes.
He
Yes,
just raised his hand.
Todd Alexander, this is the guy from.
Mr. Alexander, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you. Can you
Yes.
hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you, sir.
Great. Sure. So Bill did a good job summarizing it. These are just some relatively minor dimensional technical modifications to parking stall width and setbacks for parking areas. Essentially to accommodate some requests that we had to both coming from the fire department and generally from our civil engineers in order to get, proper access into and out of some of the parking areas that we're proposing. The modifications are really sort of in line with what we see typically in some of the other communities that we work with. My best experiences working in the city of Portland, where the parking stall dimensions, I believe, have an 18-foot depth to them. And some of the setback requirements are relatively de minimis when working within the commercial zone. So I don't think there's anything here that's sort of takes away from sort of what you might see in other communities, and just gives us a little bit more breathing room with drive aisle access and egress into and out of the site and into some of the parking areas.
Okay. Any questions or comments? We'll just go to counselors first, and then we'll come back to you. Any counselors? Okay. So, oh, yeah, Mike has his hand up. Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead, Counselor Morris.
Yeah, listen, thank you very much. I think this is, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I think this is a pretty good idea. I think this kind of goes in line with what the gentleman at our last meeting was talking about, Jacob, just talking about, looking at the number of parking spaces and that, are required for certain, establishments and things like that. And, now as we start, I think this is kind of one piece of it, kind of looking at the size and whatnot. So I think this is a good thing. And I definitely support this, having them take a look at this. Because I think this is a good start to that dialogue.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Brenda Whitney. My question, sir, is how many parking spaces are you including in your potential design here?
You might need to speak into the microphone so we can hear
I'm
you.
sorry. How many parking spaces will your plan entail?
I don't know what the proper protocol here is. I can address the question if that's being asked to me.
Yeah, she was talking to you.
Okay,
Oh, yes.
sorry.
Right. I think that's the question for you.
Okay. So we were before the planning board last Tuesday. We presented our site plan as part of a preliminary sketch review. The site plan that we presented to the planning board showed 91 on-site parking spaces.
With the modifications that you have said you're going to include, how many parking spaces does that include now?
Again, it's a total of 91.
Where essentially are you planning to put these parking spaces?
They're all located on the site that will be part of the development. So they're on site. They're not public parking spaces. They're not on street. They're not part of other public parking facilities. They're located on the site that we're redeveloping.
Yes, and that indicates then that it would be to the people who are going to be renting the apartments?
Correct.
And you expect 91 people to have these apartments?
We have a total of 63 apartments currently proposed in the plan, along with we have mixed use commercial and residential on the first floors. So the parking that will be available to the residents and overnight, and some of them will be dedicated throughout the day for residential use, and other parking spaces on site will be shared. So they'll be available for residents overnight, and they'll be available for commercial and retail uses during the day.
All right. My question again is, where on the lots that you have proposed do you plan on putting these parking spaces?
So there is a site plan that should be part of the public record. It was presented at the planning board meeting last Tuesday, and it delineates where the 91 parking spaces are located on the site.
Just
I think
So,
will be.
oh,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I have been.
So I think part of the public process is that we will. So what happened on last Tuesday was what's called the preliminary sketch plan review. We're required to come back to the planning board for what's considered a preliminary and final approval. So our site plans will be available for those public meetings. Those public meetings would take place after the planning board considers this proposed change to the dimensional requirements for the parking stalls.
Well, I'm very interested in where the parking is going to be. We have businesses along that very short piece of road, Temple Street, and I'm concerned about the parking space availability for these stores to continue to service their patrons, and without having these taken, as it were, by people using the new complex.
So I just want to point out that what we're deciding right now is just whether to refer to the planning board, and those questions and will be answered at the planning board review should we decide to go ahead and refer. I mean, that's the purpose. So right now we're just trying to decide whether to refer to the planning board. So unless you have and I think, you know, we heard your concerns about numbers of spaces, and that can be addressed at the planning board.
Well, then I will certainly attend.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Do you know how to? Do you know that the planning board meetings are posted on our website, and you can attend in person or online?
No, I didn't know, but
Okay.
if I can get that information, I will certainly do my best to be around.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Are there any other questions online?
No.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the public? I think we're ready for a vote.
Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Frankie?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 1 opposed. 6 in favor and 0 opposed. Sorry. Can't add. Math is hard. Ordinance 77-2023, amend the zoning ordinance 20 and 30 Airport Road.
Move to adopt.
Second.
So this has come back to the council from the planning board after it was referred to them to allow for a construction of solar farm basically behind Central Maine Motors Group that would then provide power to that business.
Is there anyone here to speak to the project?
There is a gentleman who's raised his hand
Okay.
virtually,
Okay.
so I can go ahead and promote Mr. Alex Roberts Pierre.
Okay.
Hello, sir, can you hear us? Mr. Roberts.
Can you hear me
Pierro?
okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, good evening. My name is Alex Roberts Perel. I'm with Revision Energy here tonight on behalf of Gauntz Investments LLC, Chris Gauntz, owner of Central Maine Motors. We met with the planning board and planning staff last week, also in sketch plan review. It was, we're back here with the change. It was the recommendation of the planning board to, instead of make a zoning amendment to allow solar farms within the commercial C zone, which would essentially open future development opportunities to other areas in that zone that they didn't feel are appropriate throughout the zone, while they do feel it's an appropriate use at this particular location. It was the idea of both the planner and planning board chair to change what was being proposed, I guess, to the council, so that only areas on those two lots where solar would land would be rezoned into airport industrial, where solar is currently an allowed use with the same setbacks of the zone that they felt were appropriate. And so that's why it is back to you in a slightly different configuration than a few weeks ago.
Okay.
And I'm
thank
happy
you.
to answer other questions if you have any.
Okay, do we have any questions? Councillor Frankie.
Well, I have a question for the planner. We're just suggesting to rezone the footprint where the solar panels will be. Is that correct?
Right, that's correct. The fronts of those two parcels are already in use, automotive use, and they need to stay in the CC zone because of that use.
Well, I would note that the space that we're talking about, well, the auto buildings are on the front side of the property. The back side of the property is the airport, which is, so it's actually totally consistent with being the airport industrial zone. I talked to Mr. Gantz a couple of days ago, and he said they anticipate getting 85% of the electricity that they use there. He explained that they have heat pumps to do heating and cooling on all of their facilities, and he's got there's 6 or 7 buildings out there, the different garages that they have. So it's a pretty big operation. I think this fits right in with our resilience committee to try to start to move commercial and industrial entities here in town into the renewable energy field.
Yeah, I think it's a great example of, I mean, you can call it spot zoning, but I think it makes a lot of sense in this case. And, you know, for the reasons you mentioned, it is right near the airport. And I love the fact that it's going to actually provide energy to a Waterville business, which our other solar farms aren't actually doing yet. I'm really hoping that the Resilience Committee will be looking at solar pretty closely, because I think that since we started doing solar projects in Waterville, I mean, the whole state has learned a lot about the unintended consequences and challenges of these projects. So not every project might have the advantages that this one does, but so I'm hoping the committee will be looking at that, and yes, it would be great to shift more of our energy to renewable resources. Any other comments? Anyone online?
No.
Anyone from the public? No. Okay. Let's move to a vote.
Counselor Gilly,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Enthusiastically, yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor McCormick.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Thank you.
Yes, let me. Ordinance 78-2023, amend the zoning ordinance to CV Street.
Move to adopt.
Second.
This also is coming back to the council from the planning board. You do have in your materials a memo from the city planner that represents what the planning board had discussed. The planning board voted 4-2 to recommend rezoning 2 CV Street from commercial C, CC to commercial C, C1. And that would basically allow for the conversion of a former commercial space to an apartment.
Comments?
Could we have the,
Any questions?
we have the good fortune of having the city planner sitting here in front of a microphone. Perhaps we could get a brief comment from her as to the tenor of the discussion at the vote at the planning board.
Nobody on the planning board seemed to object to the concept of having housing there because there's quite a bit of residential use right in that area, except for the health issue. The property is quite close to Eastern Avenue and the railroad tracks. And so one of the planning board members in particular was very concerned about diesel fumes, the health hazard of diesel fumes.
I got you.
Mr. Thompson is here if you wanted to ask him a question.
Hi.
Hi.
Any questions?
Do you have any comments?
Not really. That concern that was raised makes no sense to me, really, but everyone's entitled to an opinion, and I don't want to stir anything up, but I'm on the upper side towards College Avenue. Diesel fuel emissions in that area, I believe you would find you got more on a daily basis going up and down College Avenue than anything to do with railroad tracks, but other than that, it's all apartments all around me. I don't see where I'm going to be impacting anyone or hurting anyone, trying to provide a little housing.
Yeah.
So I did look at this area on the assessor's database, and it does seem to be housing all around this area. I mean, there's a little bit closer to the railroad tracks, there is a commercial, a residential zone, RC,
Residential C, yes.
but then the area between that and College is zoned commercial, but there is a lot of housing there, it appears. Is that legal non-conforming housing, or why is there so much housing in that commercial zone?
I think that it was, most of that housing was built before we had this current zoning, the CC zone. And I think that at one point the city expected that maybe some of the housing would be removed and it would be replaced with commercial development. But as you know, on the other side of the west side of College Avenue, the city recently rezoned the strip to CC1, which allows a mixed-use development.
Mm-hmm.
So mixed-use development seems to be a good way to go there.
Mm-hmm. I just have one more question. Were the two objections, the two nay votes, were they both for the same reason?
I believe so. The second planning board member didn't say why she was opposed, but I think she was supporting the planning board member who was concerned about the health aspects of it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any other questions? Okay, yes. Can you come to the microphone, please? Thank you. Okay.
Yes, it's me again. Is this housing going to be focused for a particular financial group, or is it going to be for the low-income housing?
Mr. Thompson, could you go to the mic so that we can hear your answer? Thank you.
It's just a one-bedroom apartment. It's not like a complex or anything. It's just a one-bedroom.
How many apartments in that?
It's just a duplex right now.
Just a duplex, yeah. So that's it.
Yep.
Yeah, because my big concern is the homeless that we have in this area. And I'm hoping that we will be able to get enough housing so that no one will be homeless.
Guess that is a good reason to support this.
Yeah, well, I was just, Yeah, well, it does. Yes, it does. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I think that we need to take care of all of our citizens and not just the ones who can afford $1,400 or more. You know, I think everyone should have the basic right to have food every day and housing. I think that should be just a human right, and I think that this is our community, and these are people in our community, and we are all part of this community. So we need to be focused, I think, on elevating everybody, not just ignoring a group. Let's take care of one another.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Is there anyone online?
No.
All right. And no other counselors? Let's move to a vote.
Counselor Gilly,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor McCormick.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed. Order 79-2023, approve T-hanger lease for Lot 18.
Move to adopt.
Second.
So I'm going to have our airport manager discuss these next three items.
Good evening. So I'm sure there are some questions that surround this particular lease. So I will start with probably the biggest question is why we're looking at waiving or abating the 5 years, both for the lease as well as for the tax on the facility. I'll point out that right now we collect 0 in this location, and that over the course of the 5-year period of time, it's assumed that the aircraft will occupy that, given the long list of requests that we have for hangars. If those aircraft fly just 1 hour a week, that buys enough fuel to offset our loss on the tax and the lease over the course of that 5 years. So, in short, the fuel sales alone will recapture that loss that right now we're not getting anything for. We also anticipate that there may be some movement of aircraft from a larger community hangar that will aid in facilitating storage of larger aircraft, one in particular from a state agency that would like to locate here in Waterville. And that would be an aircraft that would consume jet fuel, which would assist us more so than that of the smaller piston-driven aircraft. After speaking with our assessor, we would be looking to amend the lease with your approval to add some language to do a credit enhancement agreement through the airport TIF so that we can go ahead and proceed with this accordingly and legally. And we would just simply amend the existing airport TIF to include that. And that one other item in there is that we would just correct one of the sections to state that it is in fact an 8-unit T-hanger being proposed, not a 6-unit T-hanger. Mr. Pilot is unable to make it tonight, but he does already own one of the 2 hangars that have built in the last 15 years at the airport, and he sees the need. So one of the other block hangars that's on tonight's agenda is also something that is going to be built by him. He sees the value and what's happening at the airport. He's seen the changes and the modifications and the forward momentum that we've gained, and he wants to be part of it. I am strongly in favor of what he's trying to achieve. It's something that I have wanted to see for the last 12 years I've been working for the city there, and it's something we desperately need.
So Could you just explain to us how a T hangar differs from a regular hangar?
Absolutely. So T, given the shape of a T, it's exactly like that. And these are nested together. So essentially this building is like a common storage unit that we see all over the place. But they're constructed in the form of T's, and they're backed into each other. So it's the most efficient way to utilize space and store an aircraft and be cost effective at the same time. Whereas a block hangar is a rectangular hangar separated by space in between the hangars.
Okay. Yeah. And the credit enhancement agreement, that would be for the waiving of the taxes and the lease payment?
Just the taxes.
Just the taxes.
So we would have to add language into the lease to capture the waiver of the first 5 years of the lease, and then we will have to come back to you to amend the airport TIF to capture the taxation portion.
Yes, and that would have to go through the TIF committee for that amendment. I discussed this a little bit with the assessor this afternoon. And we do have, there was a small amendment that just extended the airport TIF for a couple of years. I think at the end of last year maybe, or last fall. I don't remember correctly.
I think we extended it 2 years.
Yeah, so we still have additional time.
I think she's leaving her water bottle behind.
Yeah.
And to that, we could always create a special TIF zone for this project. I would note that since it is a little bit up in the air, well, let me ask you this. What's the timeline for construction?
He's ready to begin immediately.
Okay.
And the need is immediate as well. We have several other state agencies that want to move to Waterville.
Yes. Well, nevertheless, I do think that we should meet the TIF committee before we act on this. So I'm going to suggest that we, what's the word I'm thinking of? Table this until the TIF committee has a chance to weigh in and discuss with the assessor exactly what we need to do, so that when we do approve the lease, that there's nothing left up in the air.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
Yeah. I have no objection to that, and I think Mr. Pilot will understand.
Can we hold a TIF committee meeting? It would be great to hold it before the next council meeting, if possible.
It all depends on the schedule of the members of the TIF committee, but we certainly can try to get that together as quickly as we can.
Not to hold it up,
Yeah.
Too much, but, so, any?
Just, Counselor, as a request, where this is in order because of the duration of the lease, maybe we could do the first reading with recommendation that it goes to the TIF committee before we take the final reading, so that we don't delay them an additional period of time.
That's a good point.
Well, we have a motion on the floor. Would you consider withdrawing your motion?
I think we should stick with procedure, Randy, and do things in their proper order instead of rushing into things. So, no, I think my motion remains on the floor.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion?
On the table motion.
On the
Motion to
table
table.
motion. I see that our city attorney is here. I don't know if you have anything to add on this.
The only thing I would add is, from a procedural standpoint, you should table it to a date certain.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll make that to the next meeting. And if we can't meet the TIF committee before then, we can always table to the next meeting after that.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Or-
let's.
Or we could
go with, at that point, just to try to not delay too long, we could go with a first vote at that point as well.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's move to a vote on the motion to table to the next meeting.
So that the TIF committee can consider the item.
Yes.
Right? Counselor Gilly?
No.
Counselor Klepak?
I'm sorry. I'm still deciding. I guess I can go along with Claude's for one meeting. I can go along with Claude's dedication to procedure here. Yes.
Yes. Counselor Green?
Yes, I'm in favor of tabling.
Okay. Counselor Morris?
Nope.
Counselor Frankie?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
This is one of those that it feels like we need to, not that we need to slow down, but it's got too many dangling things on it that are going to bite us if we don't let the TIF committee take at least a glance at it. So I'm going to go with Claude and say yes on this.
So the vote is 4 in favor and 2 opposed.
Okay.
Thank you, Randy.
Order 80-2023, approve hangar lease for Lot 6.
Move to adopt.
Second.
So, I mean, the story is the same here, right?
It is not. So we are not requesting any waiver of anything on the next two.
I see.
Yeah, these are just straightforward single hangars, right?
Correct.
Nothing fancy.
Correct.
And how many hangars do we have of this type out at the airport?
Currently, there are 11 hangars of this type. There are 2 other hangars that are larger that exist. And we have space to accommodate at least 40 more in the area that's dedicated for these off the same taxiway.
All right, any questions about Order 80, hangar lease for Lot 6? Okay. We can move to a vote.
Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Frankie?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
Vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed. Order 81-2023, approve hangar lease for Lot 15.
Move to adopt.
Second.
So this is same thing?
Same thing, just a
Yep.
different lot.
Okay. I think we can safely move to a vote.
Counselor Gilly?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Morris? Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Frankie?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in
I
favor
didn't get
and
a chance
0.
to bring one in. He hollered twice. I'm a yes.
Yeah, okay. Oh, that was him. Sorry. Sorry about that. I thought that was you. Resolution 82-2023, authorizing closure of city streets for outdoor dining.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Some background for us?
Yes. So the information in your packets and the resolution talks about closing sections of Silver Street and Merchants Way in order to allow expanded opportunities for outdoor dining. We would also like to have an amendment that would also close a portion of Common Street so that we can implement the same thing that's been happening over the last few years where the Proper Pig would be allowed to use some of the parking spaces on Common Street. The amendment would be such that it would be really up to the city's discretion as to how much of that space to utilize after we meet with the owner and manager of the Proper Pig so that we can make sure that it's safer than it has been in the past. We feel like it shouldn't come out as far, the barricades shouldn't come out as far into Common Street as they have in the past, so that we can kind of push them back a little bit and make it a safer passageway. We also had a discussion today, when I say we, City Clerk Patty and Public Works Director Matt Skane, about putting in a temporary speed bump on Common Street before we get to that area. That way the traffic isn't speeding up as it goes by that area. I think it would help with the safety concerns for traffic. I think I think it makes sense because the city has not actually really been forward thinking in this regard around these types of events, if you will. Since the ordinance calls for outdoor dining to be allowed April 1st to November 1st, and we're already towards the end of April now, and we're just talking about this now. So I think, we didn't have any discussions with the business owners prior to this coming to the council's attention. So I think it's appropriate to allow them to do this for this year, with the thought that, we need to have a better discussion around this perhaps in the fall, about what our intentions are with the concourse, for example, Silver Street, because of the downtown visioning activities that have been going on, so that we can have a good discussion around that and have a good understanding from all the businesses, instead of, making any change now.
Yeah, it seems like when we finally complete the visioning and we're able, in whichever steps are going to be implemented, what the actual plan is going to be, I'd like to get to a point where we just settle in to
Yes.
like embracing whatever aspect of on-street dining is going to be a permanent fixture in the city, and we can somehow plan accordingly around that.
Yeah, or not, depending on whatever comes out of that.
It makes sense to me to have a flexibility. I like being able to shift with the seasons, but I don't know what the long-term plan is.
Yeah, we don't know that yet. So that's one thing that we need to discuss as a city, as a council, to try to figure that out and move forward with it. As I said, hopefully later on this fall, to have those discussions. I had very good discussions today with the owner and the manager of the Lion's Den. I haven't had a discussion yet with the owner and the manager of the Proper Pig, but that will be happening, hopefully, early next week.
Does this resolution include the Lion's Den as well on the concourse?
This would allow the line. Well, the ordinance currently allows the city manager, the clerk, to issue licenses after consultation with the city manager and the police department around these things. The council has to approve the closure of the streets. So if you approve the closure of Merchants Way, a portion of it, that would allow the Lion's Den, Who's Pub. Am I missing anybody else?
Holy cannoli.
It would allow them, if they so choose, to apply for those licenses.
Well, looking at I'm looking at the photo, and it shows additional outdoor dining, Holy Cannoli.
Yeah.
Who's Pub, but it doesn't extend to the Lion's Den.
They would be going across Merchants Way into the park.
They use the park.
Yep. But we have to close Merchants Way in order for them to access that park, according to state liquor laws.
Councilor Frank.
Well, we put this program into place because of the pandemic to help the merchants be able to stay open. The pandemic seems to be winding down. It's not quite as serious as it was. And this was, I think, always envisioned as a temporary measure. So I would like to offer an amendment to this that I've given the clerk. Would you be willing to read that for me, Patty?
I did not bring it with me. I apologize. Was it to make this a 1 year?
Yes, to let the merchants know that this is only for this year, and that in light of the revisioning and the decline in COVID, that we're going to take a more global look at this issue after this year. So
I do have the language if you would like me to read it.
Yes, yes, please.
As the pandemic winds down and in light of ongoing revisioning discussions, this may be the last time that such ad hoc street closures will be necessary. That was from Councilor Frankie.
Okay, I see Councilor Morris has his hand up.
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't know there was going to be an amendment to this. So are we,
before he
are we
speaks,
just discussing this
before he
particular
speaks, could I
amendment?
get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Sorry, Mike.
Okay.
No, that's fine. I just want to know, like, so okay. I don't want
So
to talk about this amendment. So
are you
Are
you talking about the amendment then, or are you talking about the actual
Yeah,
ordinance?
I didn't know he was going to make an amendment, so my hand was raised to talk about this thing globally and not add this amendment just for
Okay.
his 1 year thing. So
All right.
I have nothing to add on that. I'm not in favor of the 1 year thing. We have to review this every year. I don't think that this is necessary. If we decide in the future that it's not necessary, then we can make that determination. I don't think we need an amendment to say that this may be the last year. This may be the last year anyway. Like we don't need an amendment to say that.
I would agree, especially since we've just discussed making sure that we get together early and make a plan with the merchants for next year. It doesn't seem to add anything actionable to the ordinance.
Well, the purpose that I proposed it is to let the merchants know what we're thinking instead of keeping everything secret here in the council chamber. But if you don't think the merchants ought to know that this could be the last year, that's fine.
They know it. They know that already. De facto, we, by our approval each year, they understand that that's the scenario. They also understand that all those business owners are very aware of the process that we're in the midst of. Right. Certainly, the pandemic has wound down, but we're in this intermediate state where we're hoping that the outcome of this visioning process is going to give us a more permanent solution to some of these questions.
Certainly, yes. And clearly, my motion has generated the kind of discussion that the merchants should know, should hear. So whether you vote for it or not, I think I've accomplished what I set out to do.
I think
I
so.
thought we had the same discussion last year.
Yeah, I think,
That
I
this
think
was
we
going to
did.
be the last year that we did this. Everything was going to go back to, we're not going to tie up the streets again this summer. We're going to reclaim our property over into park and everything else. It was all going back to what it was.
So I think that we do need to have this discussion, and certainly it will be in the minutes that we have the intention to revisit this ordinance well before April 1st next year. Let's vote.
Do we need to start putting a date on some of this stuff? Because we keep saying we're going to talk about it in the fall, and we don't talk about it in the fall. We need to put some dates on some of these things, and from, say, this point on, we're going to talk about this after the first meeting after Labor Day or something like that, when everything is winding down.
Yeah, well, we had a city manager, a different city manager at that point in time. And, we have an interim manager now. We're moving into a place where we're going to have a new city manager. The administration has been in flux because of all that. We're certainly moving in the right direction in terms of, systematizing our approach to many issues, and I anticipate that that's going to get better with the advent of a new city manager and integrating them into the broader team here. So I think we all share that sentiment that you have, Tom.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I like eating outdoors like everybody else. I enjoy it. It's just that similar to spot zoning, we keep saying we're not going to spot zone anymore, but it always comes back to haunt us. And then we say we're going to discuss this in the fall. Well, something's going to happen in the fall, and we're not going to discuss it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not. And once we get our administration straightened out, maybe that's the time to start having these discussions.
I suspect it's going on our acting city manager's to-do list, either for himself or the next city manager.
Yeah, I have a list going, Counselor, for the next city manager, and this is already on that list. There's actually 3 things that were added to it today, including this one. But with me having a meeting directly with one of the business owners, I can tell you that I'm not going to forget about this item either.
Oh, yeah, I know who you talk to.
Because when I meet with somebody and I discuss items, I don't just drop them. It's going to be discussed. So
Yeah.
I can promise you that.
All right. Let's vote on the motion unless, okay, one more.
Just a quick comment to the acting city manager is it might be nice to put together one of your working groups with a couple of counselors to so that we don't get surprised by stuff and we're, as Tom says, ahead of the ball game in terms of future actions.
You must have gone in my office and read my notepad, Counselor, because that's what I put on there was outdoor dining work group.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is the amendment to amend this to be for the maybe 1 year. Maybe this is the last year. Counselor Gilly?
No.
Counselor Klepak?
No.
Counselor Green?
No.
Counselor Morris?
No.
Counselor Frankie?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
No.
Vote is 1 in favor and 5 opposed. So there is another
Okay.
amendment that,
Yeah. Okay, so do we want to accept the amendment first and then we'll have discussion on
we have to put an amendment on the floor.
Yes,
Is that
right, okay. So I will move that we adopt the a proposed amendment. Be it further resolved that permission is also granted to the proper pig to utilize a portion of Common Street in a size approved by the city.
Second.
All right, and now we can have discussion. Counselor Morris?
Yeah, so I'm okay with that. I think the one thing that I would like to add in an amendment, and I don't really care where you put it in, things that
You're breaking up a little bit.
the construction of well, I'm in a car in Baltimore, so I'm going to do the best I can here. So the issues that we see are the construction of these white tents, like these party tents, and they don't look really good. So I would like to make an amendment that if we're going to allow and close these streets, that they have like the tables with the individual umbrellas that can come up and down in the rain. I think just a little bit more visually appealing than just driving down the street, that we just went this two-way traffic. Main Street really looks good, and have these huge white tents that just sit out there in the parking spaces, or, over on, like that, what's that place out in front of Cancun? That massive thing is just not very visually appealing. I really do like just the individual tables that, these people have put out, like at Silver Street with the umbrellas to kind of shade from elements and things. So I would like to add an amendment that we kind of restrict the structures that can be erected in these places.
okay.
Patty, do you have something to say?
Well, we have that amendment on the table right now, the first amendment. Do we want to dispense with that, and then we could take up the counselor's next amendment? The proper pig amendment?
I think we should go ahead and vote on the amendment.
The proper pig's on the table now, right?
Right, that's on the table
For the
now,
proper
and
pig,
then
not the
Counselor
tents.
Morris could put another motion on the table.
Okay.
Okay, so this is to allow the proper pig.
Right, any discussion now? regarding proper pick. Let's go to a vote on that.
We have.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm afraid I'm opposed to this one. Common Street has become much more active now that it's the one of the vehicles to get over to Front Street if you want to return to Winslow. So I really, even with the proposed speed humps and the restricted barrier that you've suggested, I think that this is a street that should remain open until we see exactly what the traffic patterns are going to be between Main Street and Front Street.
Is this in regards to the street right at Proper Pig?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean,
They
because
actually-
usually
yeah.
when they have in the past, I know that they've had other business. They've had outdoor seating that allows cars to pass by. It's still one way, so you're still able to get to Front Street through Main Street without issue.
Well, my concern is that we've got increased traffic on Common Street. We have increased pedestrian traffic in the area, and we're creating, I think, a hazard that I don't think is necessary.
So, the mayor and Bill Post and I had a discussion about this, and that did come up. But Bill, I think you had a workaround that would address this.
Well,
Can you
yeah.
speak to that?
Yeah, so last year, or the last couple of years, I guess, the Proper Pig did have that outside dining in front of their establishment on Common Street, and they utilized the parking spaces, basically, and those were jersey barriers that were erected there, and then they did have a tent over their dining area outside. The thought was that now we had the Public Works Director and our Assistant City Engineer out there today measuring and looking at the space, and the thought would be that we're not going to have as much space out into the street so that it doesn't get bottlenecked and narrow. And I certainly understand Councilor Frankie's comments because that is a concern. But I think at this late of a time, I think it's appropriate to allow some of that space to be utilized. But I think it'll be less than what was done the last couple of years. And then by putting in that temporary speed hump, I think that'll help as well, mitigate the speed of the traffic anyway. So that I think that's the best that we can do, for this year, while allowing them still to utilize that space without having had, any notice or any discussion with those owners of that restaurant.
Does the Proper Pig also have seating outside, like behind their restaurant?
They do have some behind the restaurant on their property.
So they still have some.
Yes.
That option also. Okay.
Yep.
Is it an option to? I'm not sure how much less space that there's going to be, but can they limit to the sidewalk on the front? I mean, or can we see how this goes and make a, determination about whether the safety element is a concern?
I can't answer really the sidewalk question. The sidewalk isn't real large there because they would still have to have a 3-foot
Right.
clearance.
So you
for
would probably
pedestrians.
put 1 or 2 tables out there.
Right.
Right.
So,
Okay.
I think shrinking the space, a little bit, so it's not so far out in the street. Last year, I believe it was 20 feet out into the street. And the parking stall length, because if you recall, they're diagonal there. So the length of those parking stalls are 13 feet. So if you can imagine another 7 feet out into the road, I think that's a dramatic difference. So that's why, we're looking at reducing how far they were out into the street itself.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And I do think if we want to if we want to say make changes to the status quo, we do have to have these conversations earlier.
We do have someone from the public raising their hand.
Okay.
Samantha, can you hear us?
I can,
Hi
thank
there.
you. Hi, so I just have a couple things I want to bring up to the council. One is just the accessibility of downtown, specifically for elderly residents and handicapped people. I think that specifically taking up a lot of that common street parking really limits the accessibility that elderly and handicapped people in particular have to access the Shuff Center, City Hall, some of the restaurants downtown. The Proper Pig has ample parking, ample dining behind. I'm also concerned, I think, you know, it was a temporary thing to help merchants during the pandemic and during construction, but it's not something that we're doing equitably among all of the businesses, right? So are we also going to shut down parking stalls in front of Amici's and Opa and Portland Pie so that they can have outdoor dining because they don't have enough room on their side of the sidewalk? Like, I don't think it's fair to shut down part of a city street for one business and not others. So I'd just like to have you think about this a little bit more comprehensively. Also, if you shut down the Silver Street access way, I'm all about things being more pedestrian friendly and all of that, but the way that Main Street was designed with the two-way was not designed with these roads being shut down, right? So the only way to take a left onto Main Street after Temple Street is that Silver Street extension there. So unless you go all the way down to Spring Street and come back through. So if someone wants to park, say, in front of GHM or the Shuff Center, there's almost no way to access that side of the street when parking. So just the flow of traffic, and I just think that it'll make it more dangerous for pedestrians if we're shutting it down. I also think that Appleton, when we do close down part of it, I've walked down there, I've eaten down there, I've been down there. It makes it really hard for cars to see pedestrians coming through with the Jersey barriers and all of that. So just keeping that in mind as well.
All right. Thank you, Sam. We have a motion on the floor to
amend.
Yeah. So are we ready to vote on the amendment? Does anyone want to have anything else to say about this one? So we're adding the Proper Pig to granting the Proper Pig to utilize a portion of Common Street. You know, I had similar concerns about being equitable. I think closing Main Street down to allow for outside dining is not tenable now with the new traffic pattern. I do agree with the accessibility issues as well. I'm wondering if we can, because that will close off a portion of the Common Street sidewalk, right? Having that be closed off.
Yeah, you can still pass on the sidewalk.
You can?
Yes.
Okay.
And cars can still get through?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Car,
Right,
traffic can
okay.
go through.
Right, the ordinance
Okay.
says there has to be a 3-foot passageway on the sidewalk.
Okay.
And
Unfortunately, Waterville was not constructed with cafe culture in mind back in the 19th century, or else we would have proper spacing and setback for this kind of thing that we're trying to do now. And so now we have this, you know, parking is a little bit of a safety valve on that.
Yeah.
Discovered usage of our frontage.
Right, and I think people do like outdoor dining, and so
Well-
it wasn't just a pandemic measure. I think people, wanted
Right.
to stay.
People enjoy eating outside. People, it adds capacity to our restaurants. It's, and for people who are not eating outside, it still brings street life. It brings life to the streets of Waterville. We've just given Waterville this amazing facelift. We're continuing that process of a facelift. And, all that resource building a downtown, we need to populate it. And so it's enjoyable to see people on the streets and, having dinner, having like serendipitous interactions.
And has any other restaurant actually asked for has Amici's asked for outdoor dining?
No. The Main Street restaurants have not.
So we don't have to worry about that then.
But the Silver Street restaurants and Common Street and Merchants Way have.
Is there room on the sidewalk for those restaurants on Main Street to have outdoor dining if they choose?
Yes, they can have some tables, but they need to maintain that 3-foot pedestrian walkway.
So for instance, Celatee has set out 2 or 3 tables. You can still walk down the sidewalk.
Right. Okay. All right. I think we should move to a vote
On the amendment,
on the amendment.
Counselor Gilly,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
No.
Counselor McCormick.
Yes.
Vote is 5 in favor and 1 opposed. Can we move it as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All right.
Does Counselor Morris want to put another amendment on the floor?
Yeah, I mean, do I have to go and say that all that stuff again? I guess essentially the amendment that that I would like to make would be to limit or restrict permanent structures from being erected over these parking spaces and on these walkways. Going forward, and really just kind of put out tables that if people want some coverage, then they go the umbrella route, very similar to what Silver Street has done, or not necessarily a Main Street business, but also over in Erica's in their little area they have just umbrellas over each individual table. It just makes things look a little bit nicer and not so.
The other thing with that,
like we're at some sort of.
Okay, so that is a motion.
So
to-
the motion is to disallow permanent structures and have umbrella coverage on tables only. Is that right?
Yeah, if that's what if they want coverage, then that would be the route that I would go. But these permanent structures.
The amendment has been made.
Okay.
There's a second.
Second.
I'm not sure what the amendment is.
Yeah.
Okay,
The
what-
wording, I don't really understand.
Can I interject on this one? What he's saying is he doesn't want the banquet style tenting, the large banquet style tents. Now, as a safety issue,
Yes,
you can't
thank you.
move those things. If the fire department needs to get in there or something like that, real quick, they can just wipe tables out the way. To pull one of those tents down, and they're not as aesthetically pleasing. That's what he's looking for. The individuals, stuff like that.
Right.
With what he wants to do, you can get the fire department in there in the blink of an eye if you have to.
Got it.
I bet you can't move the Jersey barriers quick. I understand what he's saying.
So,
Yeah,
Patty and then Councilor Frank.
If I could just speak to that, we did meet with the business owners last year. We amended this ordinance last year to allow and codify extended outdoor dining. And part of the concern on city staff's part was the tents that were being erected and public safety concerns and that sort of thing. The restaurant owners did feel that they did like to have the tents because the little table umbrellas, if it does rain significantly during the middle of a meal, that's really not going to protect their patrons. So some did opt for that, some did not, but they did feel that they wanted that option. So we did add it into the ordinance that they can allow for those tents to be erected, except that they need to be inspected by code and fire for the very reason that Council McCormick just mentioned, for public safety concerns, to make sure that the fire department can get through to those buildings if need be. So the ordinance was amended to continue to allow the tents last year. So we could, make an ordinance amendment, would require a separate action, I would think, rather than adding it to this ordinance, because it would be in conflict with our current ordinance if we were to add that to this.
This is just a resolution, isn't it?
Correct.
I was going to say that this is a resolution that would is just designed to close the streets. It's not to address the ordinance itself. So
I think we need to address that other question separately.
Yeah, I agree.
10-4.
and I also, while I want to talk to that.
Amendment withdrawn.
So Bill had something to add, Mike, and then.
That's okay if Mike's going to withdraw his motion.
Oh.
Well, I mean, I'm going to withdraw it if it makes sense that we're not going to have this discussion, at this point. Then that's fine. Like, it is what it is. But, if we agree with this, the tents will just be, erected tomorrow before we address the ordinance. So, here's what it is.
I also think that it's, again, not having proper notice to the business owners. They've already invested in tents or whether they've bought them or whether they've rented them for the season. It's just too late to have that discussion. I certainly understand the public safety point, but I think that's important that the fire department does go in and inspect, and the code office does as well, to make sure that they can get through when there's a fire. And I do remember that discussion from last year, even though I wasn't involved in it.
So, Councilor Morris, are you withdrawing your motion?
You betcha.
All right. That sounded definitive. Did you have something to add, Councilor
I
Frank?
was just going to point out what the clerk said. We discussed this last year and had, on the advice of city staff, made what was, at the time, I thought, a very reasonable approach.
Okay. Let's move to a vote.
Okay. Councilor Gilly?
Yes.
We're voting on the whole resolution.
As amended.
The whole kit and caboodle.
Correct. Councilor Klepak?
Yes.
Councilor Green?
Yes.
Councilor Morris? Councilor Morris?
Mike?
You might be in
Yes.
Councilor,
Yes.
thank you. Councilor Frankie?
While I think this resolution has some serious favoritism involved in it, I'm still going to vote yes out of concern for the merchants that have already made arrangements.
Councilor McCormick?
I still think we need to talk about this the first meeting after Labor Day, and I'm going to say yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Okay.
Then we have one more item. Resolution 83, 2023. Authorize the renewal of a special amusement license to the Elks Lodge, Waterville 905.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? All right. Let's move to a vote.
Councilor Gilly?
Yes.
Councilor Klepak?
Yeah.
Councilor Green?
Yes.
Councilor Morris?
Mike?
Definitely.
Yes.
Councilor Frankie?
Yes.
Councilor McCormick?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed. Yeah,
All right.
2 for Mike.
Listen, Pat, don't give me any crap. You will answer on mute 90% of the time, so don't even give me any luck.
Move to adjourn.
Give me a minute to phone.
Second.
Good night.